1.4% dehydration is aging your brain. You can't feel it after 50. Here is something that will change the way you think about a glass of water. In a study published in the Journal of Nutrition, researchers took a group of healthy young women and induced mild dehydration, a fluid loss of just 1.4% of body weight. That is less than 1 pound for a 150-pound person. Not dramatically thirsty, not visibly wilting, just mildly, ordinarily dehydrated. The kind most people walk around with every single day without realizing it. Then they tested their cognitive function. The results were striking. Concentration was significantly impaired. Working memory deteriorated. Mood declined noticeably. Headache frequency doubled. And the participants reported feeling significantly more fatigued and anxious, despite no other change in their diet, sleep, or activity level. Now here's what makes this directly relevant to everyone watching today. After the age of 50, your body's ability to detect dehydration decreases significantly. The thirst mechanism, the signal your brain sends when fluid levels drop, becomes less sensitive with age. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults have measurably blunted thirst responses compared to younger adults, meaning you can be significantly dehydrated without feeling thirsty at all. You lose the warning system at exactly the age when the consequences of dehydration become most serious. Kidney function, blood pressure regulation, cognitive performance, joint lubrication, medication processing, cardiovascular load. All of these become measurably impaired at fluid deficits that your body no longer registers as thirst. Today I am going to show you what adequate hydration actually does at the biological level after 50, why your needs are different and more demanding than you probably think, and exactly how to meet them. We will dive into all of that in today's episode. I am Dr. Alexander Wellrich. In 30 years of clinical practice, hydration is the intervention I have seen produce the fastest and most consistently underestimated results. Patients come in with fatigue, constipation, headaches, brain fog, elevated blood pressure, and joint discomfort, and when we systematically address their fluid intake as part of a comprehensive protocol, multiple symptoms improve simultaneously, often within days. It is not magic, it is biology. And the biology of hydration after 50 is meaningfully different from the biology of hydration at 30, in ways that most people and most physicians never explicitly discuss. My goal today is to give you the mechanism, the evidence, and the practical framework, because hydration is one of the highest leverage, lowest cost interventions available to you, and most people are not doing it correctly. If this kind of practical, science-based conversation is valuable to you, please subscribe to this channel. And now, let us talk about water in a way you have probably never heard before. Let me start with the physiological changes that make hydration both harder to maintain and more consequential to get wrong after 50. Because understanding the mechanism changes everything about how you approach your fluid intake. The first change is the blunted thirst response I mentioned in the opening. Thirst is regulated by osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, specialized cells that detect the concentration of solutes in the blood and signal the brain when fluid is needed. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that in older adults, these osmoreceptors respond to dehydration with measurably reduced sensitivity and delay. By the time an older adult feels thirsty, fluid deficit is often already significant. Waiting to feel thirsty is not a reliable hydration strategy after 50. It never was, but it becomes actively counterproductive. The second change is reduced kidney function. Your kidneys filter approximately 180 liters of blood per day and regulate fluid balance with extraordinary precision. But kidney function, measured as glomerular filtration rate, declines at approximately 1% per year after age 40. By 70, the average person has lost 30% of kidney filtration capacity compared to their young adult peak. Kidneys with reduced filtration capacity are less able to concentrate urine when fluid is scarce, meaning the body loses more fluid per unit of urine produced. This creates a condition where dehydration develops faster and corrects more slowly than in younger adults. The third change is reduced total body water. The human body is approximately 60% water in young adults, but this proportion decreases with age, largely because muscle mass, which holds more water per kilogram than fat tissue, declines. By 70, total body water may represent only 50 to 55% of body weight. This reduced reservoir means that a given fluid loss represents a proportionally larger percentage of total body water, and physiological disruption occurs at smaller absolute fluid deficits. The fourth change is medication interaction. A significant proportion of adults over 50 take medications that affect fluid balance. Diuretics for blood pressure or heart failure, which increase urinary water loss. ACE inhibitors and ARBs, which affect kidney fluid regulation. Certain antidepressants and antihistamines, which can impair the thirst response or increase fluid losses. A study published in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that medication-associated fluid imbalance was a significant and under-recognized contributor to chronic kidney disease progression in older adults. If you take any of these medications, your hydration needs are elevated beyond the general recommendation. Now let me be specific about the biological consequences of chronic, mild dehydration, because this is not just about feeling thirsty or having dry lips. It is organ-level biology. Starting with the kidneys. When fluid intake is chronically insufficient, the kidneys must continuously work harder to concentrate urine and conserve water. This sustained demand accelerates the decline in kidney function that already occurs with age. A study published in the American Journal of Nephrology found that adults with habitually low fluid intake had significantly faster rates of kidney function decline over a 10-year follow-up period compared to those with higher fluid intake. Conversely, a clinical trial published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that increasing water intake by 1.5 liters per day in adults with mildly reduced kidney function significantly slowed the rate of further decline. Hydration is kidney medicine. For the cardiovascular system, dehydration reduces blood volume, which increases blood viscosity, essentially making blood thicker and harder to pump. This elevates heart rate, increases the workload on the heart, and raises blood pressure. A study published in Nutrition Reviews found that even mild dehydration increased blood viscosity enough to measurably increase the risk of blood clot formation. For adults over 50 who already have cardiovascular risk factors, chronic dehydration represents an additional and entirely modifiable stressor on the system. For the brain, the consequences are perhaps the most immediately felt. Brain tissue is approximately 75% water. When total body water decreases, brain volume decreases, measurably, on MRI. A study published in Human Brain Mapping showed that dehydration produced measurable reductions in gray matter volume in regions associated with attention and visuospatial processing. The cognitive impairments I described in the hook, impaired concentration, working memory decline, mood deterioration, occur at fluid deficits that produce no subjective sensation of thirst in adults over 50. You feel mentally off. You attribute it to stress or age. The real cause may be in your water glass. For joint health, synovial fluid, the lubricant inside every joint in your body, is water-based and depends on adequate hydration to maintain its viscosity and volume. Chronic dehydration reduces synovial fluid quality, increasing joint friction and contributing to the joint stiffness and discomfort that many adults over 50 experience, particularly in the morning or after periods of inactivity. This is not the primary cause of osteoarthritis, but it is a modifiable contributor to joint comfort that is completely within your control. And for digestion, the intestinal lining requires adequate fluid to propel waste through the colon efficiently. Chronic dehydration is one of the most common and most correctable causes of constipation in older adults, yet it is frequently addressed with laxatives rather than with the water that would solve the problem at its root. A few years ago, I worked with a patient I will call Martin. He was 67, a retired accountant from Sacramento, California. He came in with 3 primary complaints: persistent fatigue that was not explained by his sleep, chronic constipation that he had been managing with over-the-counter laxatives for 2 years, and blood pressure readings that had been creeping upward despite his medication. When I asked Martin to walk me through a typical day's fluid intake, the picture became immediately clear. 2 cups of coffee in the morning, a glass of juice with breakfast, coffee again at midday, a glass of water with dinner. By his own estimate, he was consuming approximately 600 to 800 milliliters of fluid per day, less than a third of what his body required. Martin did not feel thirsty. He was 67. His thirst response had been blunted for years, and he had simply never been explicitly told that thirst was no longer a reliable guide. We did nothing else initially except systematically increase his fluid intake to 2 liters of water per day spread across the waking hours. Within 2 weeks, his constipation had resolved without laxatives. Within 1 month, his blood pressure had dropped by 8 millimeters of mercury systolic, a clinically meaningful reduction. His fatigue had improved noticeably. His morning joint stiffness had decreased. 3 symptoms, 1 intervention, 2 weeks. Martin's case is not exceptional. It is representative of how profoundly and how quickly the body responds to adequate hydration when it has been chronically deprived. But here is where the science gets more nuanced than simply drinking more water. Because hydration is not just about volume. It is about composition, timing, and the electrolytes that determine whether the water you drink actually stays in your body where it is needed. Let me address electrolytes directly because this is the piece of hydration science that most people over 50 are missing entirely. Water absorption and retention in your cells is governed by electrolytes, primarily sodium, potassium, and magnesium. These minerals create the osmotic gradients that pull water into cells and maintain fluid balance across cellular membranes. When electrolytes are inadequate, water is not efficiently retained. It passes through the body more rapidly without achieving the intracellular hydration that actually matters for organ function. Sodium gets an unfair and oversimplified reputation in the cardiovascular conversation. For most healthy adults over 50 who are not hypertensive and are not on sodium-restricted diets, adequate sodium intake is necessary for proper cellular hydration. When people dramatically restrict sodium without physician guidance, which happens frequently in well-intentioned self-management of blood pressure, they can paradoxically impair hydration by reducing the osmotic signal that promotes water retention. Sodium needs to be in the right range, neither excessively high nor excessively low. A nuanced conversation with your physician about your specific sodium needs is more valuable than a blanket restriction. Potassium is the primary intracellular electrolyte, and most American adults are significantly under-consuming it. The recommended adequate intake is 2,600 to 3,400 milligrams per day. The average American consumes approximately 2,300 milligrams. Potassium deficiency impairs cellular water balance, contributes to muscle cramping, elevates blood pressure through its interaction with sodium, and has been associated in multiple studies with cardiovascular risk. The dietary sources are entirely food-based: bananas, avocados, sweet potatoes, white beans, spinach, and salmon. There is no shortcut here. Magnesium, which we have discussed across multiple episodes for its roles in sleep, pain, mitochondria, and bone health, is also essential for proper hydration at the cellular level. It regulates the sodium-potassium ATPase pump, the mechanism that maintains the correct sodium and potassium distribution across cell membranes that drives intracellular hydration. A study published in Magnesium Research found that magnesium deficiency was associated with impaired cellular water regulation and increased susceptibility to dehydration effects. Magnesium glycinate at 300 to 400 milligrams daily addresses multiple biological needs simultaneously. Let me give you practical clarity on the numbers and the sources because there is significant confusion about what actually contributes to hydration and what detracts from it. The general recommendation of 8 glasses of water per day, the famous 8x8 rule, has limited direct research support but is not far off as a rough guide. More precise guidance comes from research suggesting that total daily fluid intake for adults over 50 should be approximately 2 to 2.5 liters for women and 2.5 to 3 liters for men, higher in hot weather, with exercise, or when taking diuretic medications. This total includes all fluid sources, not just water. Water, plain, still, or sparkling, is the optimal primary fluid source. It hydrates without adding sugar, caffeine, or calories, and it provides the baseline fluid that all other considerations build upon. Herbal teas contribute meaningfully to fluid intake and provide additional phytonutrient benefits. They are an excellent primary fluid source. Coffee and black tea are mild diuretics due to their caffeine content, but research published in PLOS One found that moderate coffee consumption, 3 to 4 cups per day, does not produce net dehydration in habitual coffee drinkers. The diuretic effect is offset by the fluid volume. Coffee counts toward your fluid total, though it should not be the primary source. Fruit and vegetables provide meaningful hydration through their high water content. Cucumbers, celery, watermelon, strawberries, and lettuce are between 90 and 97% water. A diet rich in whole fruits and vegetables contributes approximately 500 to 700 milliliters of fluid per day, in addition to beverages. Alcohol is genuinely dehydrating. It suppresses antidiuretic hormone, the hormone that signals the kidneys to retain water, producing diuresis that exceeds the fluid volume consumed. Each standard drink produces a net fluid loss. This compounds with age-related dehydration vulnerability in ways that are worth taking seriously. Sugary beverages, sodas, sweetened juices, sports drinks, contribute fluid volume but drive metabolic harm through their sugar load. They are not appropriate primary hydration sources for adults over 50. Here is your hydration protocol, grounded in the evidence. 1. Start every morning with 400 to 500 milliliters of water before coffee, before food, before anything else. During sleep, you lose approximately 400 to 600 milliliters of fluid through respiration and perspiration. Beginning the day by replacing that deficit before adding any diuretic stimulus sets a fundamentally different hydration baseline for the rest of the day. 2. Set a daily fluid target of 2 to 2.5 liters for women and 2.5 to 3 liters for men, adjusting upward for exercise, heat, and diuretic medications. Do not rely on thirst. Schedule your fluid intake: a glass at each meal, a glass mid-morning, a glass mid-afternoon, a glass in the early evening. Make it structural, not reactive. 3. Add electrolyte-rich foods to every meal: avocado, sweet potato, spinach, white beans, and salmon for potassium. A pinch of quality mineral salt if your physician has not restricted sodium. Magnesium glycinate as a supplement if dietary sources are insufficient. 4. Check the color of your urine as a daily hydration indicator. Pale straw yellow, adequately hydrated. Dark yellow or amber, dehydrated, increase intake. Colorless, possibly overhydrated, reduce slightly. This simple free tool removes all guesswork. 5. Discuss your medications with your physician in the context of hydration. If you take diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or antihistamines, ask explicitly whether your fluid intake should be adjusted and whether electrolyte monitoring is appropriate. 6. Reduce alcohol consumption with the specific understanding that every drink represents a net fluid deficit that compounds on an already dehydration-prone aging physiology. Let me bring everything together. Hydration after 50 is not a simple matter of drinking when you are thirsty. The thirst mechanism that protected you for the first 5 decades of your life has become unreliable, blunted by age and precisely the period when the consequences of dehydration are most serious. Kidney function is declining. Total body water is reduced. Medications are altering fluid balance. And the cognitive, cardiovascular, renal, and joint consequences of chronic mild dehydration accumulate silently, day after day, in millions of Americans who have been told nothing more specific than to drink 8 glasses of water. Martin's blood pressure improved, his constipation resolved, his fatigue lifted. None of that required a prescription. It required systematic attention to something so fundamental that medicine almost never discusses it directly. Water is not passive. It is metabolically active. It is the medium in which every biochemical reaction in your body occurs. Every episode in this series, mitochondria, gut health, inflammation, brain nutrition, hormones, bone, pain, depends on adequate hydration for its mechanisms to function as intended. Hydration is not the foundation beneath the foundation. It is woven through everything. Give your body the fluid it needs with the electrolytes that make that fluid useful at the consistency that aging physiology requires. It is the simplest and most overlooked optimization available to you. If today's episode was useful, please like this video, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me, how much water do you actually drink on an average day? I read every comment and I learn from every one of them. In our next episode, we are going to talk about something that ties directly into our entire series, and that most people approach with either obsessive anxiety or complete neglect. Supplements. Not a list of things to take, but a framework for thinking about supplementation intelligently. What the evidence actually supports, what is being marketed without adequate science behind it, how to prioritize, and how to have a productive conversation with your physician about your individual supplementation needs. It will be one of the most practically useful episodes yet. Until then, take care of yourself from the inside out.